Beets are definitely one of those love it or hate it vegetables. I will argue against people who hate beets any day of the week. I think they're awesome. They're lusciously sweet. When they're cooked right, they're beautifully tender with a little bit of snap to them. The one thing I won't argue against is that they take a really long time to cook. Most of the time we cook beets, we throw them in an oven, leave them there for at least an hour just to get them tenderized, which is pretty unique for a vegetable. We're actually gonna speed things up significantly today using our microwave and a couple of other cool tricks to make a really beautiful salad. And we're gonna start obviously with the beets. Now, at the supermarket, there are roughly 3 choices for beets that you're gonna find. You can find golden beets, like this one here, which have a really stunning yellow color inside, a little bit of that striated look to it there. They have almost a carrot-like sweetness. They're really, really nice in certain applications. We also have our chioga or candy striped beets, and these definitely win awards for most beautiful beet. That striation is awesome. The only thing here is while they're wonderful raw, when they cook, they actually turn to kind of an even pink color. So you lose a little bit of that drama there. We're actually gonna set these aside and today use classic red beets, which are gonna give our salad the most kind of vibrant, punchy color. And so I have about 2 pounds of red beets here. And before I prep them, I'm actually gonna throw on some rubber gloves. If you don't mind your fingers getting stained, you don't have to do this. It's just a nice way to keep the stains off my fingers. Okay, so now we've got these peeled. I'm just gonna trim them, and I like to take off a little off the top, especially if it's got one of these little stems poking out, and then a little bit off the root end, which can be just a little bit tougher. Now I'm gonna cut them up into 3/4 inch chunks. Beautiful, so now we have our 3/4 inch cut beets. I'm actually gonna steam these beets in the microwave. That's the fastest way to cook them once they've been cut up. So I've got 1/3 cup of water here. Because we're cooking them in a closed environment with just a little bit of water, we can actually season them really nicely. So I'm gonna include 1/2 teaspoon of table salt as well. And I'll just stir this around, make sure salt is evenly distributed. Then I'm gonna cover it with a plate. I'm gonna microwave these beets on high power, 25 to 30 minutes, until the beets are nice and tender and have almost no resistance when poked with a paring knife. Beets can easily handle 30 minutes in the microwave, whereas other root vegetables like carrots would totally turn to mush. Now here is why beets can handle the heat. As vegetables cook, the pectin that cements the cell walls to each other dissolves. This allows the cells to separate from each other, which softens the structure of the vegetable. Beets, however, contain a compound called ferulic acid. Ferulic acid strengthens the bonds between the pectin molecules, so that the cellular cement is harder to dissolve. That's why beets require such a long cooking time to soften. And beets aren't the only vegetable that are rich in ferulic acid. Lotus root and bamboo shoots also contain it, and that helps give them a crunchy texture. So it's been 25 minutes. We're gonna check and see if our beets are tender. Now, this is really hot, so you wanna make sure that you carefully remove the plate. I like to use side towels the whole time. And then using a paring knife, we're gonna go in and make sure we get very little to no resistance when we poke a beet. Great, so those are nice and tender. Now I'm just gonna drain them and cool completely in the colander here before we incorporate them into the salad. So while those beets cool, I'm gonna put together a nice spiced, really, really flavorful creamy yogurt dressing. It's gonna balance beautifully with those beets. And we're gonna start with some ginger. So I'm just gonna use my spoon to peel off a bit here, get the skin off. This is a nice way to do it. You don't really remove all that much of the ginger. You can obviously use a paring knife here if you prefer. I'm looking for about 2 teaspoons. And I'm gonna use a rasp style grater. I'm gonna use this for a bunch of the prep. It just makes a really quick job of getting things to a nice fine paste. Great. Next, I'm gonna get some garlic into my dressing. I'm just gonna use a clove, and you can mince this by hand. You can use a garlic press. I've already got the rasp grater dirty. Next up on the rasp is a lime. So the acidity in the dressing is gonna come obviously from the yogurt, but also lime juice, which I really love. And we're gonna use both the zest and the juice. So I'm looking for about 1 teaspoon of zest. I like a lot of lime flavor, so I'm gonna really pack in this teaspoon. Beautiful. So that goes into my bowl, and at least 1 tablespoon or more of juice. So I'm just gonna roll this to get the juices going. We'll cut in half, and juice. And you always wanna zest first and then do your juicing. So for the dressing, I'm gonna do 1 tablespoon right into there. I'm gonna save the rest of this. We're gonna use it to season the beets and the greens as we go. Next up, I'm gonna work with some cilantro. So I've got some cleaned sprigs here. I'm looking for about 4 tablespoons total, and we're gonna use them in a couple different ways. So for cilantro, you can eat the entire thing. The stems are delicious all the way down. They obviously get a little bit tougher as they go, but for the most part, they're nice and tender. Just mince from the top down until I feel like I have about what I need. 3 tablespoons are gonna go into my dressing bowl, and I'm gonna save the final tablespoon for sprinkling on the top as a nice garnish. I really love yogurt and spices together, and so we're gonna use 2 of my favorites. I have coriander and cumin, and we're gonna use a half teaspoon of each. I'm also gonna add about 1/4 teaspoon of fresh ground pepper. I'm going wild, I'm just gonna go right into the bowl, and a half teaspoon of table salt. So now it's time for some richness in there and a lot of creaminess, and that's gonna come in the form of both extra virgin olive oil and some Greek yogurt. So we're gonna start with the extra virgin olive oil. I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons. And now Greek yogurt. So this is full fat Greek yogurt, which is really key for this recipe. You need that richness to balance everything out. And I'm gonna do 1.25 cups. Okay, so now I'm just gonna whisk this together until nice and smooth. It's really all about packing that dressing with tons of flavor. It's gonna carry that throughout the whole dish. I'm gonna use a little water to thin this out just so that when I spread it on the plate, it lays nice and flat and it's easy to incorporate with every bite. So that's 3 tablespoons of water. Now, depending on the type of Greek yogurt you buy, the brand, you may not need all 3 tablespoons of water, but you're trying to get it to basically a regular yogurt consistency, even though it has all that other stuff in there. We want a salad like this to offer lots of different components in terms of different textures and flavors. And one thing that we're gonna add here is some toasted pistachios for crunch and richness. So I'm gonna take 1/4 cup of pistachios into a dry medium skillet, and I'm gonna toast them over medium heat, stirring them pretty frequently so they don't burn for about 3 to 5 minutes. They'll be nice and toasty. The pistachios are smelling and looking awesome. I can see lots of nice browning on them and they smell great, so it's time to get them out of the skillet. So I'm chopping these up so we get nice distribution throughout the salad. Beautiful. It is finally time to assemble the salad. I'm getting really excited. We're working with a green that I really love. This is cress. You can get watercress or upland cress. They're both peppery. They have an awesome bite that balances everything else out. I think it's an underused salad green. So we're gonna dress this really, really lightly. We're gonna start with 2 tablespoons of these pistachios that we toasted and chopped up for a little texture. 2 teaspoons of extra virgin olive oil, pinch of salt, and 1 teaspoon of our lime juice. Then gently toss just to coat all of the leaves. Beautiful. I'm gonna set this aside. So in the center of my large plate, I'm just gonna put all of my creamy dressing, and then using the back of a big spoon, just spread it out to the edge. We could take this creamy dressing, toss it with the beets, and we'd end up with something that looks pretty pink and not that attractive. What we're gonna do is actually layer everything on this dish so that it's beautiful to present, and then as you serve and eat it, it all gets mixed. So I'm putting down the cress here, and this is upland cress, which is a little bit more delicate in texture, but still really peppery and punch, and that's what's key to this. Watercress also has the crunch and punch to kind of line up with the beets. Leave a nice little border, about 1 inch around the sides, and now to the same bowl, we're gonna add our beets. And we're gonna season these beets up really, really simply. I'm gonna use a teaspoon of extra virgin olive oil, 2 teaspoons of our lime juice. So we carry these same flavors throughout every component, make sure they really balance nicely, and a pinch of salt. I'll just stir to make sure we're nice and combined. They look like little jewels now. I love it when they get that nice shine to them. Gorgeous. So now we're just gonna put this directly on top of our cress. Okay, this is starting to look really, really good. Just a couple final touches. We're gonna go with 2 tablespoons of our toasted pistachios right over the top. Finally, that 1 tablespoon of cilantro. I just had to go all over with that. And if that isn't the most beautiful beet salad you've ever seen, I wanna know where you're eating. I think it's time to dig in. So I'm gonna go in and get a nice big scoop, get that creamy dressing on the bottom, some of that cress, and then some of those nice beets. Beautiful. Let's get a little bit of everything. That is so good. The beets, which are tender after just 25 minutes, which is pretty crazy. They're sweet, they're really, really dense and flavorful. I love the creamy balance with that. Instead of goat cheese, it's nice to have something different, and that spiced yogurt totally delivers. That is absolutely delicious. So the keys to making a great beet salad this way are to microwave the beets and then layer all of the components. So for America's Test Kitchen at Home, an absolutely beautiful and delicious recipe for beet salad with spiced yogurt and watercress.
Thanks for watching America's Test Kitchen. What'd you think?
Well, leave a comment and let us know which recipes you're excited to make, or you can just say hello.
You can find links to today's recipes and reviews in the video description.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.
See you later.
I'll see you later.